2022.
I know.
2022. First one.
Podcast of 2022.
And it took us till February.
I know. It's crazy.
All right. We're here. What's 2022 going to look like? We got 2020 that ended up basically living in a documentary, and then 2021 was
2020,
the sequel of
2021 was the year everyone was like, okay, like let's do it.
Yeah,
Like
throw it at me.
like 2020 was a weird year because no one knew what was going on, and everyone hermited, and everyone was like puzzles, you know. And
how many puzzles did you and your wife
Oh my
do?
God, I don't even want to talk about it. Too many. And she still wants to do puzzles. But 2021 was like, okay, well, I guess we're living with this now, so let's just live our lives, and hopefully things gradually get better, which arguably I think they are. Like, I mean, you know, we're still going through lockdowns and things here and there and restrictions, but I think we're on our way. But everyone has to remember, this is still a global pandemic. Like, as much
anything
as people
can happen tomorrow.
Yeah, as much as people want to blame it on this group and that group and every other person under the sun, like, we're in a global health pandemic, and nobody knows how to react to this properly. So we're kind of all flying by the seat of our pants.
You just came back from Saskatchewan visiting your parents.
Yeah.
I heard Saskatchewan is taking
Is
off all
removing all
restrictions.
restrictions.
Has that happened, or is that happening?
If it hasn't happened, it's happening like right away.
And didn't the UK just do it?
Yeah. Well, a bit ago, I think. Obviously, using COVID cases as a metric is long. Like, that should be long gone. We shouldn't care about how many cases.
Just hospital.
Yeah, it should be about how many hospitalizations we have, how many ICU beds we have available, because that's the metric that causes our health system to go into distress. So if we remove all restrictions, like if Saskatchewan removes all the restrictions, then the hospital cases go up and the ICU beds fill up, then there's a problem. Then you have to roll that decision back. It's for the benefit of everybody. I mean, let's take all of the political bullshit out of this and say, look, like, I want to know if I get sick, even not with COVID, with anything else, that there's an ICU bed for me.
Yeah.
I need to know that.
Yeah, I think the fact that the UK and Saskatchewan and other places are starting to step back, it's showing we're going in that direction. At least it's going to take some places a little bit more time. Yep. But I think we're going in the right direction. Like
you just had COVID.
I did. I did. Yeah. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm vaccinated, boosted, young, and I try to take care of myself. But for the most part, yeah, it was a cold. If it wasn't COVID times, I wouldn't have known any better.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not the case for everybody. We're one of the lucky ones, but our family got through it pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a few other people on our team had it too.
A little vacation in the basement.
I guess so, yeah. I haven't tested positive with it yet. I feel like there's a few times that it should have probably been it, but who knows?
Yeah, these tests aren't 100% either. I took a test on the Saturday before I had it, the Sunday morning, and both were negative. And then that Sunday night it was positive. And
so you got to test yourself pretty regularly to try to catch it at the right time, because those rapid tests aren't super accurate, I don't think.
No, like I know a lot of people that just they they test it and it's negative, and then they try again and it's positive. Other family members of mine tested negative directly right after they test again and it's positive.
Yeah.
So if you go just on that first test and say, oh, it's negative, then you go to work with COVID.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of times where if you had symptoms and you're like, okay, let me check. Oh, no, it's negative. You go on with your life. Little did you know it was it. You overcame it, and you already had COVID. You just don't know it. So anyways, at this point, it's falling more in the category of a mild flu or cold.
For now.
The Omicron, at least. I think the Omicron's probably a little bit of our out, as long as it continues to stay less severe and the future variants continue to decrease in severity. Right. I think this might be the end of
that's such a hard thing to say, because I have optimism, but at the same time, like I hesitate to gravitate towards this is probably our out sort of scenario, because we just don't know.
I'm an optimist.
You know? Yeah, that's good.
Stay positive.
That's good.
Stay positive.
Stay negative.
Yeah, but yeah. I don't know if somebody says, "Oh, it's positive news or negative news." I don't know what's what anymore. Like, okay, so negative's good. Yeah, no, it's been fine, but obviously it's messing with the markets quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's screwing.
It's
with
just
a
been
lot
really
of stuff.
unpredictable.
Yeah.
I think
Everything's unpredictable,
right
now.
when it hit and 2020 kind of really got into the swing of having this disease present. Nobody knew how to react or what to do, and it caused the listings on the market to drop like crazy. It caused everyone to kind of hermit, but it didn't do the thing that everyone thought it was going to do, and that was correct the market. It didn't do that. It did the opposite of that. And I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts. There's a multitude of reasons why that happened. A lot of workplaces went stay at home, so people couldn't travel. They put more of their time and effort into bettering their homes or moving into a new home. And once it became a little less scary out there and people started realizing they could still be out in the world, I think it caused a crazy boom, which nobody saw coming. And that kind of accelerated what we're seeing now in the market, which is, we're seeing the least amount of listings on the market and the most demand we've ever seen in the history of at least, I mean, not just our city. This is across the country and arguably across the world.
Yeah. If you watch back to our last podcast, there was a segment where I predicted kind of back in the fall where I thought the real estate market was going to be in 2022, and we predicted what's happening right now. We knew that there was going to be a surge that hit in January. One, because historically it's been happening for the last 5 years. People don't see it. In the fall, there was a slowing. The last 4 or 5 falls, there's been a slowing. During that slow period, everybody thinks that's the end of this chaos and that it's going to kind of come to a abrupt halt at that time. But we know everybody looks back in the fall and says, "Oh, I should have bought. I don't see this ending anytime soon. I don't
either.
I'm looking at all the things that are happening, and I think everybody says, well, the rising interest rates are going to cause the market to crash. One, the Bank of Canada is monitoring these things.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to raise rates to a point where it's going to cause the market to crash. That's not their intention. They're trying to slow this down, so they're going to take their time with it to try and slow this. But what I think is going to happen is the hype of rates going up is going to cause more chaos than ever right now. Buyers are trying to buy to try and lock in lower interest rates. So one, the rising interest rates to slow this is actually doing the reverse effect, because all this hype about rising interest rates is causing chaos. We're at an all-time low. There's a lot of people that don't want to sell their homes because they don't want COVID coming through their houses. Right. They're afraid to sell because they're afraid they're going to have nothing to buy. We're at an all-time inventory low. Going into the spring, there will be more houses, but we're going to have a surplus of buyers that are going to come from the winter market and the previous fall market because they still haven't gotten anything. So we're going to have still too many buyers even when those houses finally come. I think there's going to be people who lock in those rates for 90 to 120 days that are going to still be fighting to get houses. So I see this chaos in rising rates till at least June or July.
Yeah.
June or July, I think we're going to see a bit of a simmering like we have in the past. And I think in the fall, if the rates do go up, which we expect they will, I think we'll see a slowing of some sorts in the fall. Now, that doesn't mean when we see a slowing that the prices are going to drop. It just means the competition might slow down.
And when we talk about rising interest rates here, a lot of people like to speculate, oh, look, watch what'll happen if the interest rates go back to where they were in the 80s, where, people were paying 14, 15% interest. When we talk about rising interest rates, like they're talking about probably 1 to maybe 1.5% over the next year or two. I mean, this isn't, people have been getting stress tested when they qualify for mortgages at around 5% anyways, even though they've been getting interest rates in the low 2s. So, I mean, this raise of interest rates over the next year isn't going to sink people to the point where you're going to see this flood of houses coming on the market because people can't afford their mortgages anymore.
Right. And you have to remember Ontario, or I don't know if it's Canada-wide, but at least Ontario, they've had the stress test. So everybody that's been getting approved for a mortgage over the last so many years has been getting approved as if interest rates were over 5%
That's what
already.
I mean. That's what I said, yeah.
The people that are buying houses with interest rates at the lower amount are being approved as if they were the higher. So if they do go up, those same people would have been able to afford
They're
it.
still in that buffer zone, right?
Yep.
They're getting approved at the low 2 or at that 5% stress test, but their interest rate's 2.
Yeah.
So there's a 3%
So we
gap
already
here.
know those people should be able to afford it. Why I personally don't think they'll ever be able to go up as high as they were is everything would collapse.
Well,
they wouldn't even get halfway. They wouldn't even get halfway.
They won't do it.
They can't.
No.
They wouldn't even get halfway. Everything would collapse, and then they would instantly turn around and lower interest rates down to like 1% to bail everybody out. So we're kind of stuck in this somewhere in the maybe 5% max range that I personally think in the near future. And I also think the reason is in today's day and age, more than before, everybody's over leveraged with more
just gonna say
credit cards, line of credits. Those things didn't exist like they do now. Like
Canada
you can't go to Walmart without getting a Walmart credit card.
Canada is historically has a very over leveraged population. We are one of the highest debt to income ratios in the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not something that we can just flip a switch and fix. There isn't a quick path out of that, right?
No. So I think the good news is I don't see us ever having to deal with that problem again.
Right.
The problems we're dealing with is high interest rates on credit cards, lines of credit, because the interest rate on a credit card is higher than it ever was in real estate, and those are other problems we have today than we did before. The banks will always find a way to get their money. So when a bank comes in and says, "Well, your interest rate is 3% or 4%," this is over. If it's a 25-year mortgage, they front load all the interest to the beginning of your mortgage. So if they front load all the interest to the beginning of your mortgage, if you actually look at your statement, it's like 60% of your payment goes towards interest. Yep. And 40% goes to principal, because the average person is going to sell their home in 3 to 7 years. So if someone's selling their house in 3 to 7 years, and then the new house, they're going to renew another 25-year mortgage and front load all that interest, the bank is getting actually 60% interest on every payment. Right. It's not, it sounds great when you say 3% or 2%, but if you look at it, your principal is only like 40% for the first few years that you got it. If you stay there for the whole 25 years, obviously it will drop, but they're not dumb. They're going to get their money. Low interest rates, they still are getting lots of interest out of us. If you look at how much you pay over the course of 25 years, there's a lot of interest to be paid. Now, this whole interest rate rising and the market changing.
Yeah, so how does this affect the general public? I mean, that's probably what people are most interested in. How where's this going to go? How does this affect me?
I'm nervous
as a consumer.
I'm nervous because when it comes to Canada's a big country, but the majority of people in this country live within how many miles of the U.S. border, right? In the south,
it's like 2 hours within a 2-hour drive.
Ontario, southwestern Ontario, basically from here, let's say to Ottawa, is your most populated area, right? So yes, Canada's a big country, but there's certain areas that are like, the hot spots for business and community living. And anyways, what I'm trying to get at is in Ontario, you have a lot of immigration coming in. That's kind of been halted a little bit throughout the pandemic. So what we're not bringing into account is when this pandemic comes to a halt, they're going to start allowing immigration back in more and more and more. When you get immigration coming in around the GTA area, the affordability of living is high. They migrate south to places like Windsor where it's still more affordable. So we know more and more people are going to continue to move here. We know people that can work long distance are moving back for families. People that are in the GTA know they can work in the GTA but from Windsor. So we have that coming. Now we have people that are coming because they can get businesses and jobs going now in the States and Detroit. We also have whether we believe it or not, we have an average sale price of the low 600s. But places like Waterloo, we just saw, and places like
they're double.
Guelph are double. Their average sale price is 1.2. So let's take a Riverside or South Windsor ranch in Windsor. We think that's crazy at $600,000. You would have to pay 1.2 for that house in Guelph or Waterloo. We're not that far from Waterloo and Guelph. And if that's something that is capable of happening already in those cities, that shows us what the potential is. We're still Southwestern Ontario. We're still a very new city when it comes to growth. And I think there's
a paradigm shift happening that I think a lot of people are kind of putting the blinders on, and they're saying this shouldn't be happening. House prices are crazy. People are overpaying for these things. But the reality is, when a paradigm shift happens, and COVID has really been the catalyst for that, we start a lot of unpredictable things start happening, and no one predicted that this work from home thing would start to rise so rapidly. I think businesses are starting to say, okay, we don't want to pay the overhead in these brick and mortar buildings anymore. Remote software is getting better because of this. Video monitoring software, people are able to work from home. Windsor's got a beautiful climate. It's got proximity to a big city. It's got a lot of amenities. So people, it's not just a bunch of faceless investors that are buying from Toronto in this city. It's actually a lot of people that are relocating to this area. Nobody really saw this happening so fast, but this paradigm shift that's now happening in the work world and the way people are going to be living, it's going to continue to change over the next 10 years and beyond. And it's tough because there are a lot of people out there that are watching themselves be priced out of the real estate market. It is really tough to see that. But the waiting for the crash mentality that we see out there, that's prominent in certain circles, it's not something that you're going to see come to fruition unless something really unforeseen
But the thing
happens.
Is, we've been hearing people with that mentality before COVID saying, I'm waiting for the crash.
Yeah.
We're waiting for something to happen. Well, a global pandemic shut down businesses and put people in their houses for 2 years.
And that was unforeseen.
And we've grown 26% in the last year. So there's the unforeseen big thing. Like, it literally shut down and closed businesses, and we're still seeing growth.
Right.
We are living in Southwestern Ontario. Southwestern Ontario is a very popular place showing a lot of growth, and I don't see any slowing in Southwestern Ontario.
That's right.
And as we're running out of land around the GTA Greenbelt area, Windsor to London is becoming a very interesting spot to people that are still paying average 1.2, 1.3. They're like, what do you mean I can pay half the price for a house in the most southern city on the border of Detroit with a new bridge coming and mega hospitals and all these things that are going on and immigration's coming here? Windsor, I hate to say it, this is my guess. I think this is the beginning.
I agree.
I think this is the beginning.
Look, I was just in Saskatchewan, and I talk to my folks all the time about what's going on out there. I have a couple real estate agent friends that live out back in Regina, where I'm from. The market there has been very balanced and stable for a while now. It even did some dipping. But guys, this is Saskatchewan. Like, you're in the middle of nowhere, really. You don't have close proximity to anything amenity wise. You get your minus 45 degree winters. It's not a desirable place for someone to relocate. So when you see things like that happening in those areas, it's literally based on amenity. It's based on popularity. And like you said, it's the beginning for us here in Southwestern Ontario, because the popularity of these cities and these places and the amenities that we have and the weather that we have and the proximity that we have to other large centers and amenities is like tenfold what they have in Saskatchewan. I mean, it's the same reason that you can't just go into Los Angeles, California and buy a house affordably, because that's where a bunch of people want to live. And when there's a huge amount of demand like that, the cost of everything goes up. Right?
Yeah. I would be more skeptical if this was just Windsor growing and everything
Right.
else wasn't. If what was it, last month, we were looking at 5 years ago, where was London's average sale price and where was Toronto's average sale price? And where were we in relation to that? And I think, I don't know if you remember exactly, but let's say we were 70% of Windsor or London's price. And
I think we're a little closer than that. Like I think we were like 80 or 85% of their price or something like that. But
But we looked at what we were relative to them 5 years ago and 10 years ago, and what we are relative to them today. It's very similar.
Very similar.
So this isn't just a Windsor problem. This is everyone growing. This is all of the Southwestern. This is Canada actually. But we have grown a little bit more in that spread. It's narrowed a little bit, and I think that's just us showing some momentum to the area. And I think it has a lot to do with the out of town investors that are coming in. But I believe that if this continues the way it's going, there is possible that there's going to be a correction to happen. But this correction but it's temporary. There's always going to be some sort of correction. Now let's go back to 2008 and 2009. This was like the all-time drop in real estate pricing. And what was it? 30 some odd percent. From 2008 to when it had dropped to its absolute lowest, it only took till 2010 to get back to where it's at, because nobody on this planet wants to see things continue to drop. So as soon as something drops, everybody's focus is on fixing that problem. So when you see the declines in our markets, they're always very short-lived, and the years of growth are always much longer. The Bank of Canada steps in, the government steps in, everybody steps in to try and fix this problem. So boom, drop. Everybody's like, okay, we got to fix it. It corrects itself. 2 years later, it's fixed. And then it continues to grow. And everybody's like, oh my God, I can't buy a house. I'm going to wait for it to drop. First, you're the type of person, I'm sorry, that's going to wait for a drop. And whoever that is waiting for the drop is probably, once it drops, say, oh, I'm not going to buy anything. We're in the middle of a recession. There's never a good time to buy. You just have to get into the market. And if the market drops, just don't sell. And people say, well, what if I lose my job and I have to sell? Well, then go live with mom and dad. Go live wherever you're going to live and rent your house out. Because rentals are always going to be a thing. If people are selling their homes, they're still going to need a place to live and they're still going to need to rent. If you invest into stocks, you're investing into a company that's out of your control. If that company goes out of business, you lose your money. If you invest in real estate, and the market goes down, well, you still have control of that land. You could rent it out, you can pay the bills, you can get it done until the market recovers, and then you can sell. The only people who lose are the people who sell when it drops. So yes, you could buy a house today and tomorrow it could drop. But even if it dropped 30% today, if you bought a house and it dropped 30%, that only brings you back to last January's pricing.
That's right.
The same time people say, I'm going to wait for it to drop. Well, you're waiting. And you were waiting in January last year, and then if we get to January this year and it drops 30%, you're back to where you said you were waiting.
And anyways. You're not going to see these crazy 70-80% drops that these these nutballs out there think is going to happen. This isn't a possibility. The Bank of Canada and a whole bunch of other forces aren't going to let that happen. But I think instead of us seeing this, this massive correction, I think staying in the same theme as my paradigm shift analogy here, we're going to start seeing new growth in new ideas like tiny homes and different developments. Like Toronto just passed like the garden suite zoning law now, where you can actually have like another small structure on your property that you can rent out, or you can have another family living in. Densification. There's solutions that are being put into play here that are going to help the idea of unaffordability and things like that. And the problem is people don't have a mental shift yet towards those things. Like, I know it's really appealing for young first-time home buyers to think about owning their own home and their first home and having, a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in a cute neighborhood. But what needs to happen here is people's mental path needs to shift a little bit and say, okay, if I can't afford those things right now, what can I afford? Mm-hmm. How can I get myself into the market? Is condo living something that I can entertain for the next 3 to 5 years? Can I get myself into the market? I was just talking to some clients the other day, and we this conversation came up, and they said, and they're in their 50s, 60s. They said the first home that they bought was a mobile home in a mobile home park.
Yeah.
This was 30 some odd years ago. That was their solution for getting into the market. They got into the market, and then they moved their way into a brick ranch home, and they raised a family in that home. These are things that I think people are writing off in their brains now because, I don't know, it might be a combination of media and social media and other people's lives showing them, like, look at how good I have it, and people have it in their brains. Well, I want that too. So I want to go buy a small house with my, girlfriend or boyfriend. And I want to live that life. It's like,
this is we're living,
you know what I mean?
We're living in a funny time right now. It's the Pinterest, Instagram, HGTV world.
Yeah.
And everybody they're trying to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to social media, their lives, and the way people perceive them. If you go and list a house, I buy houses and renovate them ever so often. I can go buy a house, let's say for $300,000, and it needs a ton of work cosmetically. And I understand people are like, well, I don't necessarily have the money to renovate.
Yeah.
Well, banks have renovation loans and mortgages and things that they can offer you. These are just things people aren't aware of, and they don't want to be aware of them because they just want the turnkey ready now.
Right.
Okay. So you move into a home. If you remember watching any movie in the past or any video of a first home, the young couple moving into their first home, it's always the scene of them rolling the paint on the walls and pushing the couches in and cleaning out the old chimney, and their face is covered. So this is literally what a first home should be. A first home should be getting in the market and getting the dirty stuff. If you go back to our parents' age and era, there's going to be houses where they bought for 45, 50, 60,000, which it's easy to look back now and be like, oh, lucky them.
Right.
But at that time, that was probably crazy.
It was.
And so there was probably houses like, there's no way. I was in the business selling houses, even in my career, for 50, 60,000. And I remember people being like, tell them I'll go up to 63 and that's it. And then the other person would be like 65, and deals would die from 63 to 65. And people are like, I'm not going to 65,000. No matter what market you're in, there's always going to be that person that says, well, I'm not going to this, I'm not going to this. It's all relative to the time. I understand the frustration now is incomes haven't grown at the rate real estate is. The only change here is now we have to get more creative. I am on a site here on windsor.ca, and I recommend anybody listening to this, go to Google, type in accessory units Windsor, additional dwelling units. There's a diagram here that will show you, it looks like some green and red houses. I'll try and share my screen while I'm talking about this. So the city of Windsor is allowing, as long as you're a primary resident of the home and you're not renting this out, you can treat it like a duplex. So whether you live upstairs and you want to rent out the basement, or you live upstairs, or you live in the basement, want to rent out the upstairs, or you have an addition off the back of the home and you want to rent it out, or even a garage that you have turned into some sort of like Airbnb suite, the city of Windsor does allow you, even though you're not a legal duplex, to turn things into accessory units. And this is what you already saw years ago in Vancouver on these HGTV shows, people going into their basements and making suites. This is a temporary thing. It's not like you're going to live your whole life with someone living in your basement. No. This is you as a young couple. Let's say you have to go and find a starter home, and the starter home's $500,000. I know it sucks. There's nothing I single-handedly can do to change that market. But my job is to help find solutions to get people into the market.
Right.
So if you find a $500,000 home, I'll pull up the numbers here in a second, but a $500,000 home, X the mortgage, minus what you're renting out your basement or your back for, should be a fairly relative affordable price that you can pay. What people don't factor in is, while you're paying down your mortgage, the average home is growing 4 or 5% a year in a stable market. If you factor in how much money you can make in 3 to 4 years and how much equity you can build to put down on that next home, at least you're in the market and growing. And like you said, with condos or anything that's a renovation, or you buy a nice home but it has a rental off the back, you just need to get creative. Everyone has this mindset that they have to go buy the turnkey home for $600,000, $700,000, live paycheck to paycheck, and just to get in the market. That's not how it has to be. It's how you think it has to be, because you're comparing yourself to the people on social media and your friends out there, or anybody in the past that got lucky enough that they got in this weird little gray area when the market was low. Right after 2008 and 9, there were some people from 2012 to 2016 that we would say are the lucky ones right now that got in right after a crash.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
You can't look back like that. I was watching something on the news the other day, and it was talking about home prices in Kingston, which they've been experiencing the same type of growth. They're about 3 hours the other way from Toronto, east of Toronto, and they've been experiencing higher growth than even we have. I think they're one of the highest growing priced cities in Canada. And there was a lot of comments on that from people in the Toronto area, saying, and I think their average sale price is somewhere in the 700s. So a little higher than us here in Windsor, where I think we're about 636 now.
As of
and
January.
these people in Toronto going, oh man, like, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could go to somewhere and get a house for imagine we could get a house for $700,000 in Toronto. Yeah. And it's frame of reference, yeah. Right? Yes. And so,
well, there's going to be the next generation, or even our own selves, looking back at this, say maybe 10 years from now or less, saying, oh, they were lucky in 2022 when they could have bought a house for $636. Right now, it's easy to be furious with the market. It's easy to be furious with the way the economy is and interest rates coming up. But you got to remember, interest rates are really low right now. When they come up, they're still considered relatively low.
Right.
636 sounds crazy, but when you compare ourselves with Guelph and Waterloo at 1.2 million, give us a few more years when, let's say, our average ends up being 800-900 a million. They're gonna be like, oh, my friend's so lucky, he bought 3 years ago in 2022 for 636. It's easy then to look back and look at what was good, but right now, because we're the highest, everybody's gonna give it a hard time.
That's right.
I don't like what's happening as much as everybody else, in the fact that first-time home buyers are struggling. Sure. I love it when I see somebody who's already owned a home growing in this market, yep. And I get to be that person that comes in and says, congratulations, you just made $250,000 right. over the last 3 years. That feels really good. The first-time home buyers, I understand, are struggling. And what I'm trying to get at, and I think what we're both trying to get at, is there's nothing we can do about this, and we're trying to frame the big picture here. Look at, as crazy as it sounds, look at what's going on everywhere around us. And believe it or not, Canada isn't even the most affordable country in the world. Go look at the average sale prices of other countries. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, really quickly, I think what we're trying to get at is we need to find a way people can get creative. Because exactly. If you don't get in the market,
yes.
There will be a time. There will be a time where there's a separation, landlord and tenants. And certain incomes will forever be tenants, and certain incomes. And right now, I do believe the way Southwestern Ontario is going, it's a good opportunity to build long generational wealth if you can get into the market.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. If I could boil down this this little bit of a long-winded talk that we just went through, sorry if that seemed a little long, but I think if I could boil it down to one thought, it's get your mind working a little creatively, and let us help you get a little creative with how to get you into the market, because waiting this out isn't the solution. Waiting to see what happens isn't the solution, because if a correction does happen somewhere down the line, it might not be for years, and that correction is not ever going to take us back to where we are now or before, right? So we need to get creative now. Let's get working to get you in the market now so that you can grow with it as well.
And it sounds like such a classic real estate line. Let's get into the market. And it's hard. I know we're real estate agents. I know it's in our best interest to sell you a home, but it's in your best interest truly to buy a home. And this is the same conversation I had with people when this started in 2015, 16, 17. People are like, no way I'm jumping into this right now. Mm-hmm. And we tried to explain it. Look, this is how historically things work. This is why I think you should be in the market. This is why I think you should get creative. And if you ask any of our past clients that work with us, anybody who's listening will vouch, those people that we got creative with, those people that got in, are very happy right now with their investments.
Right.
And at that time, everyone thought that was crazy. And last year, everybody thought that was crazy. But everybody who bought with us and got creative and found ways to get in, all are making a lot of money right now. And
not just making a lot of money, it's setting you up for the next steps of your life. And I mean, invest in real estate, invest in your life, and invest in your children's lives in that same breath, right? Because, you know, money gets passed down generationally and everything too, right? So, you know, a lot of people say, well, I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried, like, if it continues like this, what are my kids going to do? It's like, yes, that's right. So make the right decision now for yourselves so that you can help your kids do the same thing when they're older.
Right.
And right, like it's really important to find a way to sort of creatively put yourself in the right position. And that's the tough thing right now is people don't know how to do that and maybe don't know the right steps to take. But
so I'm gonna give a scenario here. If you had a couple and you're making, say, $50,000 to $60,000 a year each, okay? So a young couple starting out in their careers making $50,000 to $60,000 each, total income somewhere around $100,000 to $120,000. You should be able to afford somewhere around the range of a 636, which is the average right now, is what I put in, $1,000 home. At 5% down, which would be the minimum most banks would allow, you would be looking at about $31,000 down. Now, you would save on some land transfer tax, because if it's your first time home.
Yep.
I put taxes in at about $3,000. Could be a little bit more than that, but I just threw $3,000 in as an example. So total payment with taxes, you'd be looking at about $32.38 per month. It's a lot. $32.38 is a lot in comparison to what things could have been and used to be. Now, if you went back to the accessory units that I showed you and you found something where you could rent out an addition or a basement or make it almost like a little duplex for 3 years, let's just say 3 years as an example, you're looking at, at renting out that space for $800 to $1,000. Well, that brings your total payments down to about $2,200. A young couple making $100,000 to $120,000 a year between the two of them shouldn't have too many issues paying $2,200 a month for a $600,000 home. Now, a $600,000 home is a pretty nice house still. Yeah. You can get a nice house for $600,000. It's not your forever home by any means, but it could be. But for the average person, I would say that's a good, and you can still get $400,000 homes, $500,000. So $600,000, you're looking fairly comfortable in a home like that, and you're paying about $2,200 a month. Now, if you put 5% down because of CMHC fees, you have a total mortgage remaining of $604,000. Okay, taking a calculator here. If I take a $636,000 home and I apply a average of 5% growth. Now, this year we're expecting more than that. Next year it could be a little more than that. But let's just go with an average of 5%. And you only live in that home for 4 years. In 4 years, compounded, that would bring you at about $773,000. So if you take away the $636,000 that you purchased that home for, you would have built equity of about $137,000 in 4 years. So this isn't even including you paying down your mortgage. This is
right.
So I'm not even at that. So you've actually probably accumulated quite a bit more equity, but let's just go based on the appreciation alone.
And this is using like a 50-year average of appreciation on a home, not what we've been seeing here in the last 5 to 8 years.
So if you go to Windsor's average from like 1960 till now, it's usually somewhere in the 3 to 5% average range. So I'm using a 5% growth, which is very low compared to what Windsor's been seeing over the last 5 years, but I want to use a more conservative number. So assuming a more conservative number, we're looking at $137,000 in growth in just 4 years. Now, if I divide that by 4 years, that's $34,000 per year you're accumulating in your average home sale price. And if you divide that by 12 months, you're averaging $28.55 a month. Well, if your payments are $32 and you're renting out some of it and it's down to $22 and you're making $28, you're actually net positive. You're basically living for free if you look at it that way,
right,
just on the accumulation. So it's better than being a rental. So if you're in a rental, the same type of house, you would have to pay about $2,500 a month for. A $600,000 house right now, you'd probably have to pay about $2,500 a month for in rent.
Yep.
You times that by 12 months times 4 years, you would have paid $120,000 in rent out the window.
And that's gone.
Out the window in 4 years. So whether you want to sit back and complain about the market growing or get into the market, I understand it's expensive, but if you rent for $2,500 a month in 4 years, that's 120. If you rent for $2,500 a month in 4 years, that's $120,000 out the window. If you own a home and rent a little bit out, and the market grows just at 5% a year, in 4 years, that's going to be $130 something thousand dollars. Right. So what would you rather have, the 130 or the negative 120? It's about the mindset. I understand it sucks, but you need to use a creative mind in this market.
Yeah, and it's getting yourself
and we can help you.
It's getting yourself in the right position to be able to do that too, right? I think a lot of people, it's tough for them to make the big changes in their lives to be able to think about, okay, what's it going to take for me to save a $30,000 down payment? You know, again, get creative. Can mom and dad help? Can grandma or grandpa help? Can, you know, do you have solutions to help get you into that that position to be able to buy? And whatever you can do it, because
even if your mom and dad lend you part of the down payment and split on the investment, even if you split on the investment with your mom and dad, say, hey, co-sign with me, lend me the down payment. When I sell in a few years, we'll split the profits 50-50. So if you make $120,000 in 4 years, give your mom and dad 60 grand. Thank you so much for putting it down. Now they've helped you out. You have 60 grand in your pocket. Plus
they
what you
made money
down.
On their investment.
So they've made money on their investment. You've pocketed 60,000 plus the money you put down, plus the down payment they lent you. So you got all this money back in your pocket. There are ways you can get help. Now, I understand if you can't save that kind of money and you don't have somebody who can lend you, it is trickier. There's going to be those situations.
Sure.
But we can't help all situations. But there are things you can do, and some people are just not aware of the options in front of them.
Yep.
And all it takes is one phone call, one meeting, weigh all the options, see if it's doable. We're not afraid to let people know if they're going to have to wait another year or two to do what they need to do, fix their credit, whatever it may be. But some people are surprised by the options. I mean, look, you had friends and past clients of mine that shouldn't have been able to buy the year they did on Bernard.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And we found a solution where they were essentially able to go zero down on a home.
CIBC helped them with that, I think.
Yeah, so they were given a loan. They used the loan to pay down, use as their down payment. They got cash back on closing. That cash back allowed them to pay off the loan. They had a little bit higher interest rate, but allowed them to get into the market. They had to stay with that particular bank for at least 5 years. When they went to sell, they just upgraded their home with that bank, so they were still with that bank. They made a ton of money in the growth of the market.
And they live in a house that they love now, in an area that they love. And
had they not have got creative and done that at that time,
that's right,
they'd still be renting. They wouldn't have made all that money, and they wouldn't be where they're at. They've now avoided this chaos in the market, and they're in a really nice home. And this is all the result of just getting creative.
So, switching gears a little bit, we all know that housing's a great investment. Obviously, we've seen that growth happen, and now we're getting into a world where Facebook has turned into Meta, and they've now coined the term the metaverse, and there's this whole virtual world now going on behind the scenes. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we're starting to see investments being made in this world. NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. There's digital artworks that are being created that are selling for millions of dollars. And there's even plots of virtual land in these virtual worlds that are now selling for insane amounts of money and growing at a very rapid rate, and are proving to be, at least in the short term, viable investments for people. And I guess anytime something like this happens, and you and I are both kind of tech people, we keep on top of what's happening in the world, and I love to see new things come out and everything. I still don't even have even close to enough of an understanding of what's going on in these worlds yet to see what the potential is for the future. But do you see this being like the new wave of investing now? Like it's almost like we're beyond crypto now. We've gone into digital ape faces selling for $1.3 million.
Not quite yet. So I think this is the new generation of Web 3.0, and if you look at what Web 3.0 it's bringing in the cryptocurrency era, the NFT era, the metaverse, virtual reality era. So Web 3.0 is just getting going. But what you need to look at is these things have been around for at least a decade. So crypto's been around for a little while.
Yep.
Virtual's been around for a little while. So there is definitely a lag curve and a delay for things to start picking up
I think
steam.
technology needed to grow
Yeah.
to a degree where it made sense to
Yeah.
make it mainstream.
So if you look at when the internet started, there was a lot of skepticism and a lot of people in the 90s that weren't sold on the idea of the internet.
Right.
They thought it sounded like a fantasy pipe dream. There were people that were investing into it and were big winners. And then there were also a lot of losers because it was so new, people didn't know which way it was going. With the NFT space, there is definitely a technology here that's going to be around for the rest of our lifetimes. It's not going anywhere.
No.
Now, I think the early era of it, the hype of it right now, is focused on the digital art. I don't think it's going to 5 years from now, 10 years from now, necessarily be all digital art.
Right.
I think where it's going to get very interesting is through digital contracts. Digital contracts that basically allow a giant web of public servers to basically dictate a transaction. So for now, if I go to a store and I buy a donut, I take my debit card and I tap it, and that sends a signal to my bank. My bank says, yes, you have money. It sends a signal back. It's actually going to become an archaic, slower form. There's a delay there from that 2-3 seconds from it to say to your bank, do you have money? The bank says, yes, they have money and they can take this out. When it comes to crypto, everything's instantaneous because the more people that use it and the more people that own crypto all communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. So it's not just one bank. It's basically a giant pool of public servers saying, yes, he has this money and it's good to go. But it takes away the middleman of the bank. Now, when it comes to our business and real estate, I think it's going to take away a little bit of the middleman when it comes to the transaction. People are going to be able to trade in real estate through digital contracts that are going to be non-forgeable. So instead of sitting there with 15 to 25 pages, signing, and to put it into a file with a lawyer and all these things to show, yes, I own this land, there's going to be this digital contract that undoubtedly shows that you've transferred the land from one title to another.
Interesting.
Now, how it plays out, I don't know. I don't know how the legalities are going to be. I don't know if somebody's going to step in and put some sort of system in place that doesn't allow you to do this.
Isn't that the whole battle right now? I mean, between governments and cryptocurrency. I mean, there are countries banning cryptocurrency because of the decentralization of it, because there isn't a government controlled banking system.
It's allowing like a free trade.
Yeah.
And these digital contracts allow people to free trade without being frauded.
There's definitely that side of the removing the potential for fraud, but what it also does, and what people I think worry about, is it's the same kind of model as something like Airbnb or Uber or any of those things that took the regulation out of the hands of the regulatory bodies that we've all become accustomed to, like the cities, the municipalities, and everything that controlled the hotels and the hotel taxes and all that stuff. And it put it into the hands of the people. And it said, hey, if you own this private property, guess what? Now we have a website for you where you can put it up online for rent, and you can just rent it directly to a person, and you can forego, right? So it's taking regulation away, which is good, but it also, you have to be careful. I think
there will be adaptation to, like, there'll be a middle there. I think there will always be a middle.
I think there has to be
Yeah.
in the society that we live in.
So the governments will adapt, the banks will adapt.
Yep.
They will start to accept crypto as just another currency, if that ends up being, or they shut it down completely.
Or it will shift into something different. It'll become a hybrid of what it is now and what it might, have the potential to be.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell which way it will go.
Yeah.
It's going to be, what will governments allow? What will they start, like, government can just come in and say, that's great, you have your cryptocurrency, but we accept taxes in dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a little early to tell, and I think there's going to be companies that come out of this, like an Uber or a Skip the Dishes or a Facebook or whatever, that's going to come up with some very smart system that's going to basically become another middleman. There will always be a middleman, but I do think the good that could come from this is these digital contracts basically taking things from paper more digital than it already is. So right now we're going from paper to online signatures, but all an online signature is online signing paper. Right? You're scanning paper, you're digitally signing that paper's still being printed and being filed away somewhere.
Yes.
So I think this Web 3.0 is eventually going to erase all paper contracts, and it's going to be digital contracts that are going to be signed through this blockchain technology that's going to be unfraudulent.
I can't wait to do a podcast 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And
we'll look like idiots.
And talk. Yeah. We'll all be well, first of all, we'll be doing this podcast virtually in the metaverse.
Right.
And second of all, we'll be in our digital office.
Yeah.
And we'll just be hooked up to wires like in the Matrix in our chairs at home.
Well, and I also think, do you remember when streaming videos came out and it was like eBaum's World and all these things, but then YouTube comes out and kind of just owns the market. Right now I look at Oculus virtual reality and all in like the little metaverse and the land they're selling in the metaverse right now is like your eBaum's World days. There's still the companies to come that are going to erase everything we're doing right now. Like, think of Facebook and MySpace. Everybody's like, oh, MySpace. All of a sudden, it's just erased off the map, and there's a company that comes in and just makes everything better.
Something new.
So right now, I think we're still in that new phase where there's companies that come in and they seem like they're going to be big companies. They seem like there's something, and then there's going to be someone who comes in with a product that's way better. It's going to knock whatever we're using right now right off the map, and we're going to be in a whole other genre of a different version of what we're currently living with. So right now, when you look at, I know this is an analogy that's used all the time, but right now we're in the Pong Tetris era of Web 3.0, and we still have Nintendo 64, GameCube, Xbox, and PS5 to come. And we're so young in this. You go back to the internet and watch videos of like Jeff Bezos in his little office selling books online, and then you look at what it has evolved into now. I think we're in those early stages, and then 10, 20 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, wow, we thought that was crazy and innovative. So we're still really young, and I think there's going to be a lot of losers because it's so young, and the amount of money people are just dropping $500,000 million on virtual land. These are the companies that might just be like, no, you're not really anything.
Maybe, or maybe they're, the people who spent $1 million on Bitcoin when it wasn't anything, and now they have $600 million in the bank, or $6 billion.
And this is why I said there's going to be a lot of big winners.
Yeah.
And there's also going to be losers, and people are investing on speculation right now when it comes to crypto and NFTs. And some of them are going to look like geniuses in the end, and some of them are going to lose a lot of money. And it's all speculation. So it's interesting. I think it's not all going away. It's not like 10 years from now we're going to be like, yeah, crypto was a fad, NFT was a fad, and it's gone. The technology there between like Ethereum and their blockchain technology and digital contracts and the things that it's going to allow, virtual reality and the metaverse is a thing. I own an Oculus. Once you try it, you're like, undoubtedly it's the future. You're not going to be sitting there looking at your 2D flat screen in the future.
Right.
If you haven't tried a virtual reality, I understand it still needs improvement, but if you haven't tried it, put it on, look around and experience some sort of virtual game or virtual movie or some sort of documentary, and you see what the potential is, and then take it off and go sit in front of a 2D screen TV. these aren't going to be what we're using
No.
in 10 years. I'm telling you, 5 years. 5 years, a 2D screen is still going to be used. It's still going to be something you can watch, but the real technology is everybody's going to have these headsets you go on. Meetings like this are going to happen with these headsets on. Even our own real estate is going to be using, people are going to be able to virtually tour
That's right.
homes.
That's a really cool idea, because we're doing these virtual tours of homes a lot now because of COVID and allowing people to take a virtual walk through the home. Imagine throwing on a virtual headset and taking a walk through those listings and making it feel like you're there in real life.
So we already have the technology in our office.
Yeah.
So when we go into a home, we 3D scan it and make a 3D rendering of the home. We do have a VR version. So if you have an Oculus headset or a PSVR and you go to our website and you open up our 3D tour, you can go into VR mode. And when you're in the living room with your VR headset, you literally are standing in the living room. I've tested it. I've tried it. We already have it.
How cool is that?
No one's using it yet.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet, because not enough people have those headsets in their homes, and people haven't invested in those things yet, but they will.
So going back to like Web 2.0 to 3.0, let's go Web 2.0, which I would still say Zoom is part of Web 2.0, even though it's a newer technology we're using now. It existed in Web 2.0, which is just your FaceTimes and your Skypes. We went from flying in airplanes across the country to meet with people in boardrooms to now, because of the pandemic, it's been put on the forefront to be able to do virtual through Skype, Zoom, or whatever it might be, meetings. Undoubtedly, once you see it, it's hard not to see it coming. We're going to be putting it already exists. There's already VR meetings where you put on the headset, you're sitting at a boardroom table, you're across from me, but you're on the other side of the country. Your person's in front of you, your laptop's in front of you, you're at a desk, you can share your screen on a big whiteboard. You can go into conference halls, you can be standing on a stage with a giant in like a university setting.
An auditorium.
In an auditorium, you have the big screen behind you. You share your screen. You're sitting in a seat in the auditorium in your virtual headset. The person can annotate and draw on the screen. They can discuss. They can share their screen. They can have open discussions. They can use their normal mannerisms. It's like they're there in person. They take the headset off and they're in their pajamas.
Yeah, and I know it seems crazy to people to think that now, but that technology is here, and it's just a matter of that getting in enough people's hands for it to become mainstream. And and once that happens and the money is flowing, that's when that technology really starts to improve and take off and get better. And I mean, look, even my wife, I mean, she works for a company that their head office is in Mississauga, and if she wants to move up, that was the mentality of, okay, well, you're going to have to relocate and move here if that's where, the route that you want to take in the company. And that's, I think, starting to go away.
All right. Yeah, so we just got cut out there for a second, but I'm trying to remember what we were just talking about.
Augmented reality. I was just saying, I remember I think it was around 2010 when I was in university, that we had a guest speaker come in and present to us and show us all augmented reality things. And for those of you who don't know what augmented reality is, you're going to see it in things like your navigation apps and stuff now, where if you're driving past a certain store, you're going to get an ad for that store. And if you're doing like a Google Street View and you're going down the street, like you might get like a pop out ad from like a store that you drive by on Google Street View that is tailored to your search preferences and things like this. Augmented reality. Now let's look at it in terms of not just virtual reality headset that you wear when you're at home playing a game, or as we go into the metaverse and the applications for that. But Apple and Google are both in current development of their glasses that they want to do. And those glasses are going to be basically heads up displays in your life. And that is going to be tailored to the experience that you want to have when you're walking down the street.
It's like the 1920s when everyone's wearing their hat. Everyone's gonna look at the 1930s, and we're all gonna be walking around with our glasses.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be something where if you're out on a walk, you could have a podcast on, and in the top left corner of your eyes could actually be the video of the podcast you're watching. And if you walk by, say, a house for sale, there's going to be something similar, I'm sure, to like a QR code.
Yeah.
And as soon as you look at it, it sees that QR code, and something will pop up where you can say, use your hands. Your hands there'll be like a digital map in front of you. So when the glasses are on, you'll be able to tap something in the air. So people will just see you tapping in the air, but you're actually tapping a button in your augmented reality.
I mean, to us, it seems crazy because it's just
Yeah.
going to look like you're a crazy person. But
Yep.
in this reality, when this happens, it's not
going to be
crazy. It's gonna
normal.
be
So no one's going to be walking around with their phones like this anymore. They're going to be hands-free.
Right.
All the buttons are going to be in the air digitally, and no one's going to see what you're pushing. But let's say you walk by a sign and you stare for 5 seconds. It's going to load the info, and then you're going to push a button that's going to bring up all the listing information on that listing. Like you said, you'll go by a restaurant, and every sign's going to have this code thing, whatever it might be, that it recognizes. Like already Google, if you have the Google app and you scan anything in your room, it will recognize that, and it will show you all the recent searches. So they already have that technology. I have a feeling to avoid error, instead of just staring at the name of a sign and it's trying to guess what it is, there's probably going to be like a QR code type thing that's going to allow it to get a more precise answer. But there's going to be things where if you walk by somebody, if you want to share your stuff publicly, you can add a friend by walking by somebody and be like, send friend request. And somebody who wears those glasses will see, boop, somebody who's walking by you just send your friend request. It'll be like the digital way of picking up girls or guys. It'll be like no one's going to interact anymore. It'd be like, do you want to be my friend? You look over and some guy with glasses is going to be in the corner.
Again, a lot of this is speculation because things do change as technology comes out. But it is interesting just to think about how it will affect our industry and how it will streamline processes and make it easier for people to be checking out homes and be getting through the paperwork process and
augmented staging.
Yeah, so that's right. They do this already.
So augmented staging is already a thing, but what I've heard through some podcasts I've listened to is right now they'll take a vacant space in a home, and a company will put the couches and chairs and everything in the space where it belongs. Okay. Yep. What they'll eventually be able to do is go to the home and put some sort of headset on and place the furniture where it goes. So when you go in with your augmented glasses, when you walk in the room, the virtual staging will still be there.
Right.
So you can turn it off and turn it on so you see the vacant space, but when you put the glasses on, you can see the couches and chairs, how a professional company has staged that home. There's going to be so many applications. That's almost like Web 4.0.
It's very early now because there's an adoption rate that you have to consider with things like this. And when these big shifts happen in technology and in the world, it's a very slow process for people to be able to adopt these things. First of all, and there's that curve, right? There's like early adopters, and then there's
skeptics.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of goes on a big curve. Yeah. The early adopters, I think, were just in that primary or that preliminary stage of, like someone like you who has a virtual reality headset and has had it for a bit of time already. I would consider you an early adopter of that, because it might not be for 5 to 10 years that you start to see those as a commonplace thing in people's homes. Mm-hmm. And businesses know that, right? And industries are aware of that on a bigger scale as well. So you're not going to see this massive push of brand new technology all of a sudden happening.
It's like electronic vehicles.
Exactly. Yeah. Or let's put it in simpler terms for people who everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has, a computer or an iPad of some sort. This adoption that we've been moving towards the USB-C ports and cords, that's been taking place over a long period of time, and we're still not there. Yeah. People still aren't comfortable using USB-C yet. And that's one thing. That's one port.
Well, even same with like Facebook users switching to Instagram.
Right.
It took so long to get people that were Facebook lovers to Instagram, and now they're on Instagram, and now it's hard to get them over to TikTok. Like, things keep moving.
Yeah.
And the problem I think we have is a very large percentage of our population is that baby boomer generation, one that just won't give a shit and won't ever want to adopt,
Right.
which will slow down getting people to jump. And the only reason we've gotten where we are in the last few years is because of the pandemic. A lot of the boomer generation almost was forced to adapt
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff, like
Yeah.
Zoom and stuff like that, because they wanted to stay in connection. But I think that population isn't going to care as much. They're not going to want to adapt. And the ones that do adapt are going to... they're going to have a little bit of a struggle, because we're getting to a point where the technological leap of learning these things is getting harder and harder and harder. Like, you know, how hard is it already to teach somebody who didn't grow up with a cell phone how to use every app on a cell phone? Now when you start putting headsets on and everything, like, it's going to get to a point where it's going to be a newer generation thing. There's going to be some older generations that adapt to it, but it is going to be hard to get a full global scale adaptation.
It makes me, I was just talking to my dad when I was visiting him at home, and he was telling me the struggles he had with my grandfather before he passed away, of like just getting him to like read a simple email.
Yeah.
Like he'd be like, Dad, just click here. And he'd be like, I did click there. And he'd be like, you didn't click there because you can't see it. And then he'd get in there and he'd click and he'd be like, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
He'd be like, well, I just clicked
Yeah.
here. You know, like, that's not ever going to change in that generation of people. Listen, when we're old,
Yeah.
we're going to be set in our ways in certain ways too. I don't
Yeah.
think we're going to have the same lag of information that the
Because
baby boomers did.
they went from no
Exactly.
to-
They went from
Yeah.
not even, like, my grandfather was born in a time when there wasn't plane travel,
yeah.
you know, so it's a little bit different for us now, but
we think
well, that's the thing,
Yeah,
because there's things out there that we are not even going to be able to fathom
so.
that are coming out.
I'm going to give my prediction really quickly. In 10 to 20 years, not a very long time, because I'm already thinking of how much things have changed since the last 10 years with cell phones and social media, and the way it's continuing to progress, and the smart people that are out there working on these things. But my guess is, when it comes to real estate, there will be some sort of augmented Google Glass something
Yep.
that will allow me, when I walk down the street, just like right now already, if you walk down the street with your 2D cell phone, that you scan a QR code and you get information. It already exists.
Yep.
That's already a thing that's starting to really kind of take place. You're going to have some glasses on where you're going to walk by, just like a cell phone, you're going to scan some sort of QR code, and you're going to be able to get that information on your glasses. I expect that to happen in the short future. Augmented staging is already happening. I expect more augmented things to happen, where if you go in, there'll be some sort of sticker that agents can put on the furnace, the AC, somewhere around. So when you're in the furnace, you look at that little QR code, it's going to give you the age, blah, blah, blah. I think these types of things are happening.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be off a little bit there, but there's gonna be something along the lines where you're gonna be able to look at things and get an age, and it's gonna make things a lot easier. Okay, I'm gonna guess that viewing from outside the city in, which already exists, but it's gonna be more adapted. People are gonna put headsets on and be able to look at a space virtually as more people own these headsets and find more comfort in using them. There's gonna be a Realtor.ca VR app. There's going to be just like a Realtor.ca app on your phone. In Oculus, there's going to be a Realtor.ca VR app.
Yep.
Something along those lines, where every listing in there is going to be the VR version, so you can look at homes through your VR headset. I think that's coming. And I think in the little bit longer future, there's going to be NFT digital contracts in real estate. I think the paper contracts are going to go out, and it's going to be blockchain contracts somewhere in the future. Now, that might be a little further out. But I don't think the future of NFT is only going to be in the art space. I think it's going to be more importantly in the contracts.
I look forward to seeing sort of how close your predictions lie. I mean, obviously, this is going to be a decades thing, not a simple single years thing. I don't think, but yeah, I mean, the world is changing, and I think, in my mind, anyways, I embrace the change, and I love to see where things go, and I love to see new technology abound. And there's a lot of people out there that don't like change, and a lot of people that are very resistant to it. And at the end of the day, I think those people tend to kind of lag behind the curve to their detriment, unfortunately, you know.
One more thing I want to add, just brainstorming as we're talking. I wonder, instead of let's say a Toronto investor putting on a headset and looking at a virtual walkthrough, if you are going to be able to join them in that room, so you can actually have discussion while in the room together. I see all these things coming. It already that technology already exists.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just a matter of adoption.
Yeah.
If those things don't have the ability to be widely adopted, they disappear.
Architects and engineers
replaces
already do it.
Of course they do.
They scan projects that they're working on, and they all meet in a virtual space with headsets on. And
so
they
cool.
talk about, what structural load are we going to need over here, and they're all in their little virtual or avatars, whatever. It's crazy, and it's exciting. It's scary. I understand there's going to be skeptics that don't like the change. There's going to be people that don't like the increase in prices. We have to manage with what the cards were dealt at the time. One person isn't changing all these things. My job and your job is to help navigate people through the markets that we're currently in. People like to point the fingers at certain industries or certain people, but in the end, we're here as an individual agent trying to help our people through the changes that are happening. And I think the changes of social media and online advertising over the last 10 years is shifting into something that's going to be a little even harder to keep up with over the next 10 years. So, real estate agents had their importance with navigating people just through MLS because everything was not digital and the information was harder to get. So agents had their resources that were beneficial to the buyers and sellers to go to an agent. Now going to an agent, it's about online presence and advertising and exposure. And I think moving forward, it's going to be more being able to guide them through these technologies, making sure that they're protected and safe and people are keeping up with the trends. And that's what we're here hoping to do. You're a realtor, virtual realtors for life.
That's going to happen.
It's exciting. I don't know. Look
exciting.
at what we're already doing. We're sitting here doing a podcast and video. Like, these are things that we weren't doing before.
Well, look at podcasts themselves have been around for years and years and years and years and years. And it's just now that they're really starting to gain that ultra popularity where they've got millions and millions of listeners, where they've got this global reach. And we're just, and we're just starting to do it now. Mm-hmm. Whereas, I remember podcasts being around 15 years ago, when they were just getting going. And it takes a long time for these shifts to happen, and they go through a lot of changes before they become what we think they're going to become. So all these predictions that you've made, a lot of them are probably going to be true, but they're going to be true only to a degree, because there's going to be shifts and changes that happen along the way. And that's the exciting part to me, is we don't know where we're headed, but we just have to kind of try to stay on top of it, I think, is the main thing. As much as we can.
70% of what we just said could be very wrong, or not wrong, but so far off of what it actually will be. We could be underestimating it. Yeah. We could be overestimating it. I don't think we're overestimating it, because I think most of the things we're saying already exist. Yeah. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take for people to adapt, and is it going to be something that's mainstream and mainly used by the public? Right. And that's to be determined, because there's going to be certain technologies that are badass, but if only 20% of people use it, it's not an effective strategy for us. And for all we know, in the rest of our careers, we're still using the same resources we're using right now.
True.
Find that hard to believe. We'll find out. But stay tuned for the next episode.
Your virtual realtors for life.